Hey, this is Kamori, and today we're going to talk about how to sell old cosplays. Whether you are just needing to clear up some space or whether you need some extra cash for more costumes, here are 13 tips to help you sell your old cosplays. Now, this may seem a bit obvious, but tip number one is to wash your costume. If you are selling a costume that is used, that means it's been worn and nobody wants a costume that's all con-funky. So wash the costume beforehand. When you are writing up your seller notes, make sure to mention that, hey, the costume's been washed. And if the costume is machine washable, that is a bonus point that you want to point out in your write-up of your costume. Tip number two is to pick a place to post. You can post on your personal Tumblr, Facebook, whatever social media platform, but you can also find certain forums for selling costumes. It used to be that cosplay.com had a cosplay marketplace, and while you can still post there, it doesn't seem to get as much activity as it used to. Now it seems to be that the trend is going more towards cosplay buy-sell trade groups on Facebook, so that is another place to check out if you're trying to get rid of your costumes in a hurry. Tip number three is to do an actual write-up of your costume. Mention the price, the items that are included, the condition that the costume is in, and make sure to point out any selling points of the costume, if it won any awards, if it was super comfortable, if it was used, or if it was made out of a really interesting fabric. Make sure that the potential buyers know the value of the costume and any thing that you think really makes it stand out above any other costume they may be taking a look at. Also, be sure to include pictures. Tip number four is to be honest. If there is some flaw with the costume, if it got makeup on it, if there is a tear, make sure to mention it in that write-up. You don't want to mislead any potential customers and have any drama associated with that, so just be upfront with the condition of the costume. Tip number five. Now, once again, this seems like it's something that would be obvious, but I have seen someone posting a sale thread for a costume that they didn't even have from the commissioner yet. They were trying to pre-sell something that wasn't even created yet, and that is a huge no-no. Don't do anything like that. Make sure you actually have the costume, and yeah, just make sure that you actually have the item that you are going to sell before you try and sell it. Tip number six is to come up with a policy. If you want to just sell the costume and you don't want to do trades, holds, or refunds, make sure you mention it in your seller thread. Tip number seven is to decide a payment type. Personally, I recommend using PayPal because it has a track record to show all of the transactions that occurred. Tip number eight is that, like a lot of places on the internet, haters are gonna hate. If someone is complaining that they think the price you asked for is too high, you can take it into consideration, but just because someone complains about the price doesn't mean you have to respond, and doesn't mean that you have to lower the price. Price whatever you think is fair for the costume. Piggybacking off of number eight, number nine is that you're really not going to make a whole lot of money off of selling costumes. Don't go into selling off your old costumes expecting to make a profit. Most of the time, you're barely even going to cover the amount of money that was spent on materials. A lot of times selling costumes is just to get them out of your house and maybe have a little bit of extra spending money to put towards other things. But you're not exactly going to be rolling in cash when you're selling off your old costumes. Tip number 10 is to have some patience and let it take some time. Odds are you are not going to be able to sell your costume right away unless you have a very large audience or very large fan following that is going to see your ad. It's probably going to take a while. It may take even a couple months to a couple of years for the right person to find your ad and decide they want to go ahead and purchase that costume. Tip number 11 is that not everyone wants to buy. It's fairly common for someone to message you asking about a particular aspect of a costume only to disappear and never be heard from again. So just be patient and accept that not everything is going to be a sale right away. Tip number 12 is to wait for an actual payment. It's fairly common for people to send a message or comment underneath a post being like, consider it sold. Well, it's not actually sold until you receive the money, so before you confirm anything, make sure you have the payment from them, and definitely do not send anything until you have received the entire payment. And lastly, tip number 13 is to ship with payment. Most items that are sent with the United States Postal Service nowadays come with a tracking number already attached, but if you are living elsewhere and your postal service does not always do that, definitely try to have a tracking number. That gives you something to send to the buyer so they know that you sent it and gives a little bit more professionalism to the entire transaction. And those were 13 tips for selling old costumes. If you have any other suggestions for any topics you'd like to see me cover, let me know in the comments below. And for more cosplay tutorials and cosplay tip videos, please subscribe. Thank you very much for watching. Bye!